Hi, I'm Sherry Quam Taylor, and you are listening to the Business Behind Fundraising podcast. Now, here we are in season 2, and today we are talking about embracing risk within your strategic planning process. This is a huge topic. And in season 2, we are talking about how to grow your revenue beyond traditional fundraising strategies, beyond the traditional fundraising activities and planning that we typically kind of default to. There are so many things that impact your team's ability to reach and exceed their revenue goals every year that frankly have very little to do with traditional fundraising. And so I want to talk through so many of those ideas this season. So I'm starting here on episode 2 with a doozy and talking about risk. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment that a donor told you that your ambitious, visionary, scaling plan wasn't risky enough. Here's what happened. I'm working with a founder and she is already raising millions, but has put a amazing strategic plan in place to scale up to 10 million in annual revenue. And uh, to be honest, in most people's books, a 5x revenue generation strategic plan would be seen as risky, right? It feels really ambitious, really visionary. It feels very abundant, right? There's this is where we're going, and everybody get out of the way kind of approach to this, which is so attractive to donors. Um, it's the impact is growing. You know, they're moving from a local impact to national impact to international impact. We would all describe this as a bit risky, right? Really, that's an ambitious growth plan. It's the work is in the equity space. The work has never been needed more in any time in history. And so, what's the problem? Well, the problem is this donor feels like this plan is really doable, right? And perhaps that's why he's not right now giving his best gift to the organization. He's not giving his best gift to the mission right now. He wants to invest in opportunities that incorporate a solid calculated risk. And to the donor, that's actually where the true reward is. And gosh, isn't that the opposite of what we our default is of what? No, they want to fund a project. They want to be able to see it's moved from this impact to this impact. Very transactional. I don't think they would do that. This donor is speaking in abundance and saying, I want you to think bigger and higher. And I would be willing to fund that. Why would he be willing to fund that? Well, it speaks his language. That's what he does. From a business perspective, he's growing a business. He's scaling. He has had to take calculated risks. And so he's not that donor that none of us want that's like dictating how the money should go and like you need to start a new program. And he's not saying that. Frankly, it probably will be an unrestricted investment. But what he is saying is, I support you in thinking bigger. I challenge you to think bigger, and I am willing to invest in you taking a risk to scale even in an even wilder way than perhaps you even imagine. And so to me, gosh, isn't this an exercise in trust building, in relationship building? It's so refreshing for all parties involved. And I am here for these types of conversations in the nonprofit sector when we've sadly shied away from these conversations for too long. And so when we think of the strategic planning process and whether or not you have, you spent money on a consultant and put together an entire plan, or your team has done this internally, I really want you to be thinking about um, the investment it takes, not only from a programmatic standpoint, but really what is also the infrastructure and cost and kind of the what we would think is as the non-interesting part that we really have to put money into, and we have to sometimes invest in to actually grow our programs and to actually grow our mission. We all know it takes all three: programs, admin, and fundraising to scale our organizations. But here's where we get stuck. So often, when we put the visionary strategic plan in place and we incorporate risk into it, and then we get to the budgeting phase, wah, wah, it feels a little like, oh, wait, that's how much that would cost. So I oftentimes hear, well, that cost is not in the budget, or we couldn't even think about putting that cost in the budget. I would argue there are things that are not in your budget that should be in your budget. And these are the things that are keeping you from scaling your revenue every year. Don't let something that feels risky keep you in a non-investment level mindset. This is what turns off donors. Let me explain a little bit. Yes, many of these costs do, eventually translate down to a line item in your budget. But isn't this an investment that we should explore, or we should even, a risk we should even consider? So one of the first steps I take with all of my clients is a deep dive into their budget. This exercise reveals all the things that organizations are not spending money on that's actually blocking revenue generation. It's completely counterintuitive. Even sometimes people say to me, well, we couldn't afford you. That's not in the budget. I get it. I get what they're saying. I'm like, of course it's not in the budget. But I guarantee you there's 5 to 10 other things that are not in your budget that if you maybe put them in your budget, you could be generating 7 figures more of general operating revenue. And so we must approach planning, spending, investing, and fundraising in this abundant mindset. It doesn't mean you're just spending it wildly if the money's not coming in the door. But the balance is that if you're going to embrace the risk and put it in the budget, then you have to also be learning how to do fundraising differently so that you can reach and exceed your goal. Equip your team to raise the right kinds of funds. Because otherwise, yeah, of course it would be scary. So let's talk about this abundant mindset right now. If you're not sure that you're living in that zone, instead of that mindset, like sometimes I'll say to leaders, what if you knew you could? Here's my list. Reframe costs as an investment to donors who really get it, who are stakeholders in our missions, but they need to hear about it differently from us. What if you could know that those funds are contributing to your bottom line, giving you the unrestricted revenue that you need to be able to scale and grow and really put the solid groundwork and framework in place that allows you to scale and scale confidently. What if you could put a stop to all the things that are blocking revenue generation? This sometimes feels risky. You want me to spend what on, digital marketing, or what on a financial partner? What are these things that have felt risky, and that frankly the sector has said way too long, find a volunteer to do that. That's too much money. That should only cost this much per hour. Not when you're scaling and growing an organization. Not when you have just grown by millions the last couple of years and are trying to figure out how to stay on that trajectory. You have to figure out how to attract donors who want to invest in your organization, who are completely cool with risk. They know the reward that it has brought, probably them personally, and the reward it could potentially bring those to those that you serve. I want your team to be confident, knowing they're leading to that donor's best gift. They're guiding that donor, really partnering with them and helping them see how they are part of really a grander solution that aligns with the mission that you're running. And ultimately, all of this leads to fully financing your mission, fully financing your strategic plan. And doing it confidently, knowing you have taken a few risks, you calculated those risks, and you put the plan in place to drive toward those and successfully navigate anything that came your way. So I would ask you, wouldn't this be worth considering? Wouldn't it be worth taking a little extra time to think about what are the things that we haven't leaned into hard enough when it comes to risk? Now is the time to do it. I see what happens when organizations flip the switch. I've seen wildly impressive revenue gains. My EDs and their teams and boards add 7 figures of revenue to their bottom line. Multi-million-dollar organizations who need more flexibility in funding to invest in all of these types of things we're talking about. So I want you to think today, how can you embrace those feelings that come with risk, knowing you're an amazing business person, and it actually might not be that risky. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you have enjoyed this episode or are following along, please take a minute to subscribe, ring the bell, all those things you know how to do. You also can hop over onto Apple Podcasts and leave a review if you'd rather listen to the audio. Have a great day.